I would not wish the kind of drug problem that I had. I would not wish manic depression on someone.
Ever wondered which stars struggled the most with hallucinogens? You won't believe who made our top 35 list. Number 35, Marilyn Monroe. What drove Marilyn Monroe to the brink despite her dazzling fame? Marilyn Monroe's rise to fame quickly spirals into addiction. Despite her dazzling career and iconic status, Marilyn faced intense public scrutiny and a lack of privacy, exacerbating her struggles with depression and anxiety. Her dependency on barbiturates grows to the point where she can no longer work. Tragically, her life is cut short in 1962 when she suffers an overdose, likely due to suicide. Marilyn's story highlights how the pressures of celebrity culture and co-occurring mental health disorders can often be at the root of addiction.
Marilyn Monroe died alone, her white phone still clutched in her hand. Just as the press had hounded Marilyn in life, so they descended upon her in death, photographing her blanketed body as it was moved out of the house, into the ambulance, and away to the morgue.
Number 34, Judy Garland. How did Judy Garland's journey from child star to Hollywood legend end in tragedy? Imagine starting your career at just 30 months old. That's exactly what Judy Garland did, kicking off her journey at the New Grand Theater in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. She went on to star in 35 films and dazzled audiences with countless live performances, even setting records in New York's vaudeville scene. But behind the scenes, Judy's life wasn't all glitz and glamour. By the time she reached Hollywood, the pressures of fame began taking their toll. To stay thin and keep up with the demands of the industry, young starlets like Judy were fed pep-up pills during the day and knocked out with sleeping pills at night. It was a cycle that quickly spiraled into addiction. In her own words to McCall's magazine, Judy revealed, "They'd give us pep pills. They'd take us to the studio hospital and knock us cold with sleeping pills. After 4 hours, they'd wake us up and give us the pep pills again. That's the way we worked, and that's the way we got thin. That's the way we got mixed up, and that's the way we lost contact." Sadly, Judy Garland's battle with addiction persisted throughout her life. She tragically passed away at the age of 47 from an overdose of barbiturates in 1969.
Looking at numerous news reports and testimonies from people who knew Judy, it's clear that she, over a long period of time, used multiple prescription medications.
Number 33, John Belushi. Discover the shocking story behind John Belushi's final moments. Let's talk about John Belushi, the legendary funny man from the original Saturday Night Live cast. You might know him from his iconic roles in Animal House and as one half of the Blues Brothers. Sadly, John's life was cut short in 1982 at the age of just 33. Despite his incredible talent and success, he struggled with addiction. His death came after injecting a deadly mix known as a speedball, cocaine and heroin combined. Despite numerous attempts at recovery, the comedian was found in a bungalow at the infamous Chateau Marmont in Los Angeles, a place where many Hollywood stars retreated.
I immediately said, "Belushi, did you take my Coke?" No. What are you talking about? What Coke? What?
Number 32, Robert Mitchum. Uncover the dark side of Robert Mitchum's Hollywood persona. The late, underrated actor was arrested for marijuana possession in 1948. One of the earliest celebrities busted for loving the green. Young heartthrob Robert Mitchum, who earned a Best Supporting Actor Oscar for his portrayal of a U.S. captain in The Story of G.I. Joe in 1945, was by reports profligate in his marijuana use until he was made an example of it in 1948, as part of a campaign to clean up Hollywood.
Merry Christmas.
Number 31, Bela Lugosi. How did Bela Lugosi's iconic role in horror lead to personal demons? To many, he perhaps is known by an even more iconic name, Count Dracula. Defining everything popular culture knows today about the iconic vampire, Lugosi's brooding presence, good looks, and thick accent stole the show in 1931's Dracula. Bela Lugosi was perhaps the first Hollywood star to openly admit to his drug addiction. Lugosi had become dependent on drugs after being prescribed opiates for relief of painful sciatica in the late 1940s. As his habit grew, his career slid into Z-list movies, and his dope friend reputation kept producers from hiring the legendary actor. Living the junkie life in direst poverty, Lugosi was given the chance of a comeback by the infamous Ed Wood, who offered the actor work on Glenn or Glenda and Bride of the Monster. Grateful for the chance to turn his life around, Lugosi checked himself into a rehab clinic. before moving into the local hospital. Lugosi went cold turkey and spent 3 months, 90 days was the state minimum, getting straight. When he left the hospital in 1955, he gave what is thought to be his last filmed interview, where he talked about his drug treatment, his plans for a new film with Ed Wood, and how he felt like $1 million. The feeling wasn't to last. By August 1956, the legendary Bela Lugosi was dead.
You're leaving the state hospital tomorrow.
Yes, I'm very happy I do, on account that I became a new man, new lease of life. I'm cured.
You're cured.
Yes, I'm very grateful to the state hospital that they allowed me and took me when I volunteered. You see, previously I was in a private sanatorium, but they weren't as strict, so I was afraid it's going to take too long. But now we made a short cut. It was very...
How long have you been in the institution, Mr. Lugosi?
3 months.
3 months.
Because 90 days is the state law. It's minimum.
Number 30, Sal Mineo. Explore Sal Mineo's rise to fame and tragic fall from grace. A recent biography of actor Sal Mineo reveals that he was introduced to marijuana while filming Rebel Without a Cause in 1955, when he grew his own plants in his backyard to save money. Sal Mineo, a biography by Michael Gregg Michaud, recounts tales of Mineo having philosophical discussions on pot with one friend and taking mushrooms with another. Mineo played the title role in 1959's The Gene Krupa Story, which depicts Krupa's 1943 bust for marijuana.
Yeah, but I never think of it that way. If the role is exciting and the role is meaty, it doesn't make any difference. I've heard that expression used very often, typecasting.
Number 29, Woody Harrelson. What led Woody Harrelson down a path of addiction and redemption? Woody Harrelson is one of the most outspoken advocates of marijuana usage in Hollywood today. He has stated, "Marijuana is about marijuana. It's a consensual, victimless crime. That's saying, I think I should have the freedom to do whatever I want to do if I'm living in a so-called free country, as long as I'm not hurting someone else. That's freedom. If I'm going to hit myself in the head with a hammer, so be it. That's freedom."
Why did you quit smoking?
Well, an experiment.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I've been smoking. I smoked enough pot to fill this theater. So...
With smoke or actual pot?
Number 28, Elizabeth Taylor. Behind Elizabeth Taylor's glamorous facade, a private battle unfolded. Elizabeth Taylor almost always seemed to have it all: wealth, privilege, glamour, superstardom, and a lot of men chasing after her. She was also an alcoholic, drug, and food addict. Behind those violet eyes, there was a beast of self-destruction that no amount of money or fame could tame. It cost her relationships, and her health suffered from her abuse. She was the supreme example of how the disease of alcoholism and drug addiction is no respecter of persons, as even the most famous and most photographed woman in the world fell victim to it. Number 27, Carrie Fisher. Carrie Fisher's most iconic role was as Princess Leia in the Star Wars franchise. For many years, Fisher also battled drug addiction. Fisher later revealed she started using drugs, including heroin, as a type of self-medication to control the manic side of her depression. "Drugs made me feel more normal," she told Psychology Today. "They contained me." In a 2016 question and answer interview with Rolling Stone, Fisher detailed her drug use, including experimentation with heroin. Rolling Stone asked, "Are there any drugs you'd wish you'd never touched?" The actress answered, "The stronger of the opiate class. I would say heroin. I snorted that. I never did it the full-on way, which is basically what you do when you're trying to kill yourself." In December 2016, the actress died at age 60 of a cardiac arrest. Her mother, actress Debbie Reynolds, died the following day.
I would not wish the kind of drug problem that I had. I would not wish manic depression on someone. No.
Number 26, Billy Gray. Why did Billy Gray's career spiral into addiction? Billy Gray, who played the All-American son Bud from 1954 to 1960 on the TV series Father Knows Best, was arrested in 1962 for possession of marijuana. The small bust for seed and resin nearly ruined his career. "I got busted for grass and they said I was a heroin addict," Gray told San Francisco Weekly in 1997.
"When I was younger, that I might have agreed with you. I even would have helped you throw the switch. I had lost all faith in humanity. I had reached the end. But it was at that moment that I found the will to live.
Number 25, Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando was the greatest actor of all time, or one of them at least. You'd certainly be hard-pressed to find anyone who doesn't count him among the pantheon of Hollywood greats. The foundation of all that intensity and that talent and that masculine bravado, however, was a life marked by misery. Brando's existence was one of those of abuse, given both and received tragedy and a seemingly perennial decline, almost a paradox for an actor who drowned in adoration and accolades for nearly his entire life. From his troubled childhood to his rise to fame and subsequent downfall, to the collapse of his family and his eventual unremarkable end, little about his life inspires jealousy. The legendary actor grappled with alcohol and drug addiction, especially during the 1960s.
Marlon, what were the shows that you've done in New York? Name one or two for me.
I was in Canada with Catherine Cornell.
Yes.
And I was in Eagle Rampant with Tallulah Bankhead.
Number 24, Errol Flynn. What secrets about Errol Flynn's Hollywood lifestyle were hidden from the public? The dashing actor, known for swashbuckling roles, struggled with alcohol and drug addiction throughout his career. On screen, he was Captain Blood, Robin Hood, the Seahawk, and Don Juan. His name changed through 45 Hollywood films, but Errol Flynn always portrayed the amorous adventurer. Off-screen, Flynn assumed roles that were no less flamboyant. He was a swashbuckler in the wilds of New Guinea, a slave trader, a sailor across the seven seas, a war correspondent. He smoked his first opium in Macau, took his first sweet puff of marijuana in Mexico, and was known for applying cocaine to the tip of his penis so he could perform longer with Hollywood starlets. The insatiable hedonism earned Flynn 2 charges of statutory rape, a morphine habit, and an international reputation as both a hero and a debauchee. Number 23, Tatum O'Neal. How did Tatum O'Neal's early success pave the way for personal struggles? As the youngest person to be awarded an Academy Award, Tatum O'Neal grew up in the bright lights of Hollywood stardom. Her father, Ryan O'Neal, was a famous actor and boxer. Her mother, Joanna Moore, was likewise a famous television star. Later in life, O'Neal married tennis legend John McEnroe and had a family. But all of that wasn't enough to keep away the allure of drugs. She got clean and started a family, but that wasn't enough to silence the pull of drugs. She lost custody of her children because of her heroin use. I hated the way I felt inside. I hated this exterior life in Hollywood that looked great. Little girls wanted to be me. Boys wanted to date me. But I was being treated like the most terrible daughter that had ever lived, O'Neal told the New York Times. All I wanted was my mom, and she wasn't there. So when I finally met John and that didn't work out, I had such a hole in my gut. I didn't know what to fill it with. It was so empty. I kept filling it with heroin, then stopping, then going back. But I got clean, and I did 2 years of urine testing, and I did get my kids back. O'Neal was arrested again in 2008 for buying drugs in Manhattan.
You love your dad.
You love your parents. You love
Yes.
your parents, good, bad, or you know.
And
evil.
you were a heroin addict.
I was.
Okay, I mean, you are a heroin addict. I mean,
Well, I'm a recovering heroin addict. I'm not a current heroin addict.
But people have this, I almost never use the was terminology when I talk about addiction.
Okay.
And I get offended or disturbed when people go, oh, so-and-so was a heroin addict. No, they've got to deal with that every day of their life.
Yeah.
It's something they must work on every day.
Yeah.
You work on your recovery every day.
I try to. I think the best thing you can do is like have your sponsor in your life as much as possible. She's in the green room. I want you to meet her.
I would love to.
Number 22, Peter Lawford. Peter's friend, Arthur Natoli, recalled, Lawford and Elizabeth Taylor used to turn on together. They were high on pot a lot. On the surface, Peter Lawford lived a charmed life. He enjoyed a successful career as an entertainer and leading man, married into one of the most high-profile families in American history, and was a member of the famed Rat Pack. Yet despite his success, Lawford ultimately died a tragic figure. In 1953, the actor struck up a romance with Patricia Kennedy, sister of then-Senator John F. Kennedy, and the two were married a year later. The Lawford-Kennedy marriage produced 4 children, but ended in 1966 amid numerous reports of Lawford's alcoholism and extramarital affairs. He would also marry 3 more times. He sunk heavily into drug and alcohol abuse during his later years. Attempts at treatment were unsuccessful. Although Lawford displayed charm and elegance throughout his career, hard living ultimately cost him his life. He died in 1984, heavily in debt, from cardiac arrest complicated by kidney and liver failure.
Exodus, vous y jouez, je crois, le rôle d'un colonel anglais.
C'est ça, oui. Caldwell, major, un major.
Un major, ça ne vous change pas, vous êtes anglais d'origine.
Number 21, Hal Ashby. A lifelong smoker, Ashby was busted for pot in Canada while scouting locations for Nicholson's vehicle, The Last Detail, in 1973. Hal Ashby fought the Hollywood system, and throughout the 1970s he won. At the top of his career were films like The Last Detail, Harold and Maude, Bound for Glory, Shampoo, Coming Home, and the decade-ending Being There. Ashby was one of the most prolific and best directors of the 70s. Then came the 80s and a downward spiral that lasted until his death in December 1988. What happened? Well, on the surface, Ashby, Hollywood's hippie director, known to smoke a lot of weed and use cocaine on occasion, could easily be classified as another drug burnout.
But I felt like I knew how to do it. Like I went in and George was attached. Jersey Films controlled it. I met with Scott Frank, the screenwriter.
Number 20, Bing Crosby. Bing Crosby surprised interviewers in the 70s by saying that he thought pot should be legal. Like his buddy Louis Armstrong, a lifelong marijuana enthusiast, Crosby smoked jive before it was made illegal. His son Gary argues that Crosby's laid-back style was influenced by his early marijuana use. When Gary began to drink, Bing told him, "Oh, that booze, it killed your mother. Why don't you just smoke pot?"
Well, as the granddaughter of legendary crooner Bing Crosby, Denise Crosby was born into a world of showbiz. But Denise never met her famous granddad, and her family was torn apart due to drugs, alcohol, and infighting.
Number 19, Bob Hope. According to Bob Hope, the road well traveled by Lawrence J. Quirk, Hope admitted to trying pot during his vaudeville days, then later said he hadn't sampled it until around 1975. To more conservative publications, he'd say he knew pot wasn't good for people, but to more liberal ones like Rolling Stone, he'd say it's just like liquor. It all depends on dosage and frequency, you know.
Before I go, Jeff, promise me one thing, she said. Promise me you'll always be a friend of little Orville, she said. No matter what happens, you'll never leave the little jerk, she said. Promise me, Jeff. Promise me.
Number 18, Jamie Lee Curtis. How did Jamie Lee Curtis confront and overcome addiction? In 2018, the Halloween star got very candid about her 10-year addiction to opiates, which began in the late 80s after a minor plastic surgery for my hereditary puffy eyes. The result was a prescription that changed her life. I had a 10-year run, stealing, conniving, she told people. No one knew, no one.
You've been on the cover of many, many magazines, as
Many.
you know, yes. But your most recent one is really more meaningful because it's the cover of Variety's recovery issue.
Yes.
And, and inside you talk about your addiction to Vicodin, which is apparently ubiquitous in the country with the opioid problem for many years.
Yes, it was
and
a long
how did
time.
you keep that hidden all those years?
Well, I think a lot of people
Yeah.
have a lot of secrets. And in recovery, we say you're only as sick as your secrets.
Number 17, Jeff Conaway. What led Jeff Conaway from fame to personal turmoil? Actor Jeff Conaway achieved legendary status when he played Kenickie in the 1978 movie musical Grease alongside John Travolta. Together they sang the immortal chestnut Grease Lightning, a song about Kenickie's prized car. However, while filming this sequence for the movie, Conaway suffered a back injury that got him started on prescription medications. Celebrity treatment specialist Dr. Drew Pinsky treated the actor on several occasions. Jeff was a severe opiate addict with chronic pain. One of the most serious and dangerous combinations of problems you could possibly interact with, Pinsky said. I told him for years that it was going to kill him. Sadly, Pinsky was right, and on May 27, 2011, Conaway died in Los Angeles at the age of 60.
Okay, first off tonight I have some really sad news for not just me but all of us. Jeff Conaway is in a coma. Many of you know him from Taxi. A lot of you remember him as Kenickie from Grease. I was working with him on Celebrity Rehab. In fact, my daughter came to me when she watched that first program and said she got mad at me because I made Kenickie cry. He had drug and alcohol addiction. He's been in and out of sobriety, and I'm deeply saddened to learn that Jeff is hospitalized and in a coma. It's not looking good, and my thoughts and prayers remain with him and his family.
Number 16, Susan Sarandon. The award-winning actress told the Daily Beast that she's attended Burning Man, where attendees often do psychedelics. Even before that experience in 2016, Sarandon was not new to the idea of mushrooms, she told the outlet. She said she prefers plant-based substances like psilocybin, ayahuasca, and cannabis compared to chemical stuff, although she did try some nice and pure LSD from her friend and psychedelic advocate Timothy Leary back in the day. While experimenting with mushrooms and ayahuasca, Sarandon said she likes to be outside. I'm not a city tripper, she said.
Have you ever smoked pot with Snoop Dogg? Or
Yes.
would you consider doing it?
Yes.
You have. I have too. Well, I don't have to smoke it. When he smokes it, you get high because he fills the room.
He came to spin for something in New York, and I must say we had a very fun time. Yeah.
He's a good guy.
He's a very good guy. Yeah.
Number 15, Robert Altman. Robert Bernard Altman was an American film director, screenwriter, and producer, a 5-time nominee of the Academy Award for Best Director, and an enduring figure from the New Hollywood era. Altman was considered a maverick in making films with a highly naturalistic but stylized and satirical aesthetic, unlike most Hollywood films. An April 5, 1992 review of The Player in the New York Times quoted him saying, "I was a heavy drinker, but the alcohol affected my heart rather than my liver, so I stopped. And I miss it. I really like that kind of life. I smoke grass now. I say that to everybody because marijuana should be legalized. It's ridiculous that it isn't. If, at the end of the day, I feel like smoking a joint, I do it. It changes the perception of what I've been through all day." Interviewed in 2004 for The Guardian, Altman said he loved to party, still wasn't drinking, and still liked to smoke marijuana. He lit up a joint after the interview and reported that he smoked pot sitting across from Prime Minister Tony Blair at a party.
4 years previous to that, on a project for a film called The Chicken and the Hawk, which was about World War I flying.
Number 14, Gunnar Hansen. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a nightmare-inducing classic capable of freaking out the most ardent horror buffs. It's weird, raw, and delightfully unhinged, and features one of the cinema's greatest baddies, the chainsaw-toting Leatherface, memorably portrayed by Gunnar Hansen. As it turns out, to get into character, Hansen would occasionally kick back a brownie or two. During a pivotal scene where Leatherface chases Sally or Marilyn Burns and cuts his way through a door using a real chainsaw, Hansen scarfed down a few brownies someone had passed out earlier, not realizing they were special brownies according to Vulture. The actor didn't feel the effects until filming commenced, which caused him to struggle during the scene. With a chainsaw, luckily no one was hurt, the drugs eventually wore off, and filming continued without much fuss. "I trust Gunnar 100%, Burns said later, but not Gunnar on brownies. With a chainsaw, running up the steps, take 44, uh-oh, that's perfectly understandable."
Hi, this is Gunnar Hansen with a frog in his throat. And that's because he was tasty. I just want to say you're watching Chiller Cinema with Dr. Gangrene. Oh, and I wanted to say, kids, if you sit at home and you watch movies and you talk. When you go to the movies, shut the fuck up.
Number 13, Frances McDormand. How did Frances McDormand navigate Hollywood's challenges? The Fargo and Nomadland actress told the Daily Beast she enjoyed mushrooms and LSD in her youth. After being raised in a religious home, McDormand left home at 17 and rebelled in the comfort of a 4-year liberal arts education, she said. "I had a list. Virginity, check it off, and get rid of it as quickly as possible. Every drug that didn't involve a needle, I wanted to try it," McDormand told the Beast. Nowadays, the actress sticks to weed. She was an early cannabis advocate, appearing on the cover of High Times holding a joint in 2003.
Talking about, I wonder what it was like. I feel nostalgic for a time I didn't even have. You know, that time before we regarded ourselves with such criticism, but also with such kind of the currency that looking a certain age has.
Number 12, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Academy Award winner Philip Seymour Hoffman was a film and stage actor who gained acclaim for his performance as Truman Capote in the 2005 film Capote. He later went on to star in another Oscar-nominated films, including Charlie Wilson's War and Doubt. At the end of his death, he was almost finished filming the final film in the Hunger Games series. Hoffman battled addiction his whole life, and he died in February 2014 at the age of 46. His official cause of death was combined drug intoxication.
You don't drink? No, I don't. In fact, you went into rehab at a fairly early age.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I did. I went, I got sober, I was 22 years old. Yeah.
So this was drugs or alcohol or both?
Yes, all that stuff, yeah.
Number 11, Dennis Hopper. What fueled Dennis Hopper's turbulent Hollywood career? For better or for worse, Hopper's drug use informed almost the entirety of his career. Whether he was tripping balls with Peter Fonda on the tomb of D.H. Lawrence or telling David Lynch what kind of drugs his insane gangster character would be taking, he was the true psychedelic king of Hollywood. Hopper has been reincarnated from a brash young actor in the 50s to a rebel hippie filmmaker in the 60s to a drug-addled industry pariah in the 70s. Hopper hit rock bottom in the mid-80s when, crazed from cocaine psychosis, he was found by police naked and hiding in the Mexican jungle. Best known for writing, directing, and acting in Easy Rider, the award-winning seminal 60s film, the actor had amassed an astonishing body of work, more than 120 films, in the past 6 decades, appearing in Rebel Without a Cause, Giant, Apocalypse Now, and Blue Velvet, among others.
And I really appreciate Francis Wright, even though he does drop it on you sometimes, and it does take you sometimes, an idiot like me, a whole day to learn it.
Number 10, Cary Grant. Before the government decided to criminalize the use of LSD and other psychedelics, they were used as a form of psychotherapy. Oddly enough, one of the biggest proponents of LSD therapy was none other than Mr. Arsenic and Old Lace himself. Of his psychedelic experience, he said, "I said to the doctor, 'Why am I turning around on this sofa?' And he said, 'Don't you know why?' And I said, 'I didn't have the vaguest idea, but I wondered when it was going to stop.' 'When you stop it,' he answered. 'Well, it was like a revelation to me, taking complete responsibility for one's own actions. I thought, I'm unscrewing myself. That's why people use the phrase, all screwed up.'"
Well, we can meet any place you say. Yeah, we celebrate my triumph. Well,
Number 9, Gaspar Noé. Gaspar Noé is an Argentinian filmmaker and screenwriter who lives in France. He is the son of Luis Philippe Noé, an Argentinian artist. He directed I Stand Alone, Irreversible, Enter the Void, Love, Climax, Carne, Lux Eterna, Sodomites, and Vortex. His films are known for having a sensory overload style, most notably in Enter the Void. Noé has made some of the most visually striking and unforgettable films of the last 2 decades, and he's managed to toe the line between art house film and narrative like an old pro. It's no wonder that he took a lot of drugs as a teen, before he started making his most interesting films.
It says time destroys all things, but also time reveals all things. Time reveals all things and destroys all things. It just depends if you watch backwards or you watch forward.
Number 8, Ken Kesey. How did Ken Kesey's literary fame intersect with personal struggles? In the 60s, it made complete sense for an author to write something as blistering as One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and then to turn around and start riding around in a psychedelic bus while handing out acid to unsuspecting squares. Kesey's love of dropping acid began when he took part in the CIA's MK Ultra program, and from there he hit the ground running. In 1965, Kesey was arrested in La Honda for marijuana possession. In an attempt to mislead police, he faked suicide by having friends leave his truck on a cliffside road near Eureka, along with an elaborate suicide note written by the pranksters. Kesey fled to Mexico in the back of a friend's car. He returned to the U.S. 8 months later. On January 17, 1966, Kesey was sentenced to 6 months at the San Mateo County Jail in Redwood City, California. 2 nights later, he was arrested again, this time with Carolyn Adams, while smoking marijuana on the rooftop of Stuart Brand's Telegraph Hill home in San Francisco. On his release, he moved back to the family farm in Pleasant Hill, Oregon, in the Willamette Valley, where he spent the rest of his life. He wrote many articles, books, mostly collections of his articles, and short stories during that time.
Kesey's experiences at the hospital inspire him to write a novel, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He claims the drugs enhanced his creativity.
I would have not been able to write that well without LSD. There's something about seeing a reality with a new light shined on it that goes right from your eyes to your fingertips.
Number 7, Andre Previn. Discover Andre Previn's journey through music and addiction. For those of you who don't recognize Previn, all you need to do is take a listen to the score of films like My Fair Lady and West Side Story to realize who he is. In the 50s, the composer was one of the members of the Hollywood psychedelic therapy that opened the consciousness of hundreds of people. Andre George Previn was a German-American pianist, composer, arranger, and conductor. His career was three-pronged. Started by arranging and composing Hollywood film scores for Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, Previn was involved in the music for over 50 films over his entire career. He won 4 Academy Awards for his film work and 10 Grammy Awards for his recordings, and 1 more for his lifetime achievement.
I'll go get my best one.
Please do that.
Yes, it's in Chicago.
He's in. I like it.
Number 6, George Carlin. Stand-up comedian and social critic, George Carlin was best known for his skit, 7 Words You Can Never Say on Television. Clever, cynical, and hilarious, Garland had a gift for incisive commentary on topics like religion, materialism, and the mindlessness of mainstream society. Here's what he said about his experience. I did LSD and peyote in the late 60s, before I got into cocaine. That was concurrent with my change from a straight comic to the album and counterculture period, and those drugs served their purpose. They helped me open up. You know, if a drug has anything going for it at all, it should tell you when you've had enough. Acid and peyote were that way for me.
The drug and alcohol thing, it seems to me, comes down to this. Drugs and these things are wonderful. They're wonderful when you try them first. They're not around for all these millennia for no reason. First time, mostly pleasure, very little pain, maybe a hangover. And as you increase and keep using whatever it is, the pleasure part decreases and the pain part, the price you pay, increases until the balance is completely the other way and it's almost all pain and there's hardly any pleasure. At that point, you would hope, then the intellect says, oh, this doesn't work anymore. I'm going to die and I'll do something. But you need people around you who can help you, and you need something to live for. You have to have something to look forward to bring you out of it.
Number 5, Charlie Sheen. In the 1980s, Charlie Sheen was one of Hollywood's most famous young stars. While his popularity ebbed and flowed in the following decades, he is known as one of the most notorious celebrities who went to rehab thanks to his very public meltdown in 2011. He lost his high-paying TV gig on 2.5 Men, and he's working on his recovery today.
Sheen has admitted using hard drugs, being addicted to alcohol, and soliciting prostitutes.
Everybody wins.
Who could forget his very public meltdown 4 years ago when he was fired from the hit TV show 2.5 Men?
Number 4, Jayne Mansfield. From an early age, Jayne Mansfield knew she was destined for stardom. Mansfield rode a wave of publicity hyping her as heiress apparent to Marilyn Monroe. If Jayne Mansfield had begun her career as a parody of Marilyn Monroe, it seemed that she was ending it as a parody of herself. Turning to drugs and alcohol to cope with a life and career that was rapidly careening out of control, Mansfield engaged in a volatile affair with her attorney, Sam Brody. Brody and Mansfield's relationship often degenerated into drunken brawls, as recounted by biographer Mae Mann. Diminished to performing a tawdry, traveling nightclub act, Mansfield's career and life were on borrowed time. Number 3, Natalie Wood. What led Natalie Wood to the tragic end of her Hollywood story? Let's delve into the life of Natalie Wood, the iconic actress whose career spanned decades and left an indelible mark on Hollywood. In a revealing interview from 1978, Natalie Wood, then a mother of 2 young girls, shared candid insights into her personal life. She admitted to occasional marijuana use with her husband, Robert Wagner, saying, "We smoked marijuana occasionally." She clarified, "I wouldn't say we were like users of it, you know, but definitely everything is more enlightened." When asked about rumors of harder drug use, Natalie addressed them directly. She denied ever trying cocaine, but acknowledged using the powerful barbiturate Seconal regularly. Natalie Wood's life wasn't without its struggles. Just 3 years before her tragic drowning in 1981, she was candid about her challenges with excessive drinking, pill popping, and marijuana use.
You know what the Lampoon Award was?
Yes.
But not only for last year, but this year and next year, the worst
That's
actress
right.
of the
Yes,
year.
yes.
Were you a little hesitant about coming up to accept it?
Well, no, I felt
Number
that...
2, Montgomery Clift. Now we're diving into a tragic but remarkable life of Montgomery Clift, one of Hollywood's most talented actors of the mid-20th century. Montgomery Clift is remembered for his powerful performances in iconic films like Red River, A Place in the Sun, From Here to Eternity, Judgment at Nuremberg, and The Misfits. His ability to portray complex characters with depth and emotion set him apart in an era known for its cinematic legends. But behind the scenes, Montgomery's life was far from glorious. In 1956, a near-fatal car accident changed everything. It not only left him with severe physical injuries, but also deep emotional scars. To cope with chronic pain, he turned to alcohol and prescription drugs, which unfortunately spiraled into addiction over the years. As the 1960s progressed, Montgomery's career suffered due to his addiction and declining health. Studios found him difficult to insure, making it nearly impossible for him to secure roles despite his immense talent. His final on-screen appearance in The Defector in 1966 starkly contrasted with his earlier vibrant performances. He looked unfit and frail, a shadow of his former self. Tragically, just a month after wrapping his last film, Montgomery Clift passed away in his New York City apartment at the age of 45. The official cause was occlusive coronary heart disease, but it's widely understood that his drug addiction and numerous health issues played significant roles in his untimely death. Number 1, Cheech and Chong. How did Cheech and Chong's comedic partnership shape a generation amidst controversy? Now we're delving into the wild world of Cheech Marin and Tommy Chong, the dynamic duo known for their hilarious and controversial take on drug culture. Cheech Marin and Tommy Chong skyrocketed to fame in the 1970s with their stoner comedy routines and films that glamorized drug use. They made a fortune by poking fun at societal norms and embracing a carefree, psychedelic lifestyle that resonated with audiences around the world. Their movies like Up in Smoke and Nice Dreams weren't just entertainment, they were like a gateway into a counterculture that embraced marijuana and other substances as part of a rebellious, anti-establishment lifestyle. With acid rock playing in the background and slapstick humor at the forefront, Cheech and Chong made it seem like a party where the only rule was to have fun. Far out, man.
What do you like so much about drugs?
Drugs? I was like 7-Up or, lemonade. It gives you a lift. Yeah.
Thanks for watching. If you found these stories shocking, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you never miss out on our latest videos. See you in the next one.